All right, this is the BSAD 101 lecture for April 27th, 2026. Last class we were talking about pricing strategies, um, and where we left off was looking at these 5 options here: new product pricing, differential pricing, psychological pricing, product line pricing, and promotional pricing. New product pricing has a couple aspects to it. 2 options really. One of them involves charging the most possible. This is a form of what we've discussed is called discriminatory pricing, where you're actually looking at early adopters. Early adopters often have a higher willingness to pay. Think of your Apple fans, or anyone who is likely to pay more to buy the product as soon as it's released, or might be excited about a new product model or line. At the introductory stage of that product life cycle, if you remember that diagram there, in the introductory stage, you may have buyers with higher willingness to pay, and price skimming attempts to charge and get more value out of those early customers. A different form of pricing that's kind of the opposite strategy says, okay, we want to capture, for whatever reason, we might have a need for early market share. So we're actually going to set a low price, even a price perhaps below cost. Video game consoles do this regularly when they launch. It's important in the video game console market because they're what we call platform strategies. So market share is really important. If Sony and Xbox are both releasing the next generation console at around the same time, both firms are really competing for each other's market share with the new console. And the size of the installed user base will determine how many other users want to use it. There's those network effects. If a console looks like it's not getting much traction, it can actually discourage other people from buying the console. If I'm not going to be able to play with my friends on my PlayStation, and it looks like people are buying it, they're buying the other one, I'm going to perhaps make my purchase based on who I see else buying it around me. The other side of that is that the providers of complementary products, in this case video games, the video game studios, if they don't have a large enough installed user base for a console, they have no incentive to make games. If the console only sells 200,000 units, no one is going to be incentivized to create games for that device. You see the same thing with operating systems, iOS and Android. There was a Microsoft mobile operating system, Windows for phones, and it didn't get a large enough installed user base to attract app developers and thus and also new users. So sometimes you might price low and slightly above or even below cost to get that market penetration. Differential pricing we talked about in our last class, but just to remind you, some products we just have one price that everybody gets. Apple exercises very rigid price control on its product through all its channels. You can't give a discount without their permission. Other products we have negotiated pricing. The example of a car. Most people go to a car lot expecting to be able to negotiate on the price. If you buy something secondhand, secondary market, you almost always expect to be able to discount, and you're going to have 2 people selling the same good might ask different prices. And if there's only one of those on on eBay or on Craigslist at the time, you might just pay for a completely different price here in Louisiana in April than somebody else might have paid in January in Wisconsin. Another form of differential pricing is discounting. Everybody's used to the Black Friday sales. That's a periodic reduction in price, or just random discounting. Stores that have this usually involves some kind of discretion that the seller might have in order to give discounts as and when they want to, maybe for Mardi Gras or something that's more regionally specific. Psychological pricing we also discussed. The odd number pricing is that whole thing. You don't charge $10 for something, you charge $9.99. Has that odd number in it. Multiple unit pricing. If we can bundle things together, even things like services, Hulu bundled with Disney Plus, the seller will have decided they can sell more of these goods by bundling them together, at least for some purchasers. Reference pricing is that whole competing on cost thing, or best price guarantees. We find out or refer ourselves. We might say we're guaranteed 10% cheaper than Walmart, or guaranteed 10% cheaper than whoever our reference competitor is. Bundle pricing, similar to multiple unit pricing. I suppose multiple unit pricing is when you're selling multiple units of the same good at a better price. Think Costco or Sam's Club. Bundle pricing is where you're selling things that are slightly different but selling them together. That would be more the Hulu, HBO, and Disney Plus example. Everyday low prices is basically what Walmart does, just always setting prices to be as low as possible. This might also involve some kind of price guarantee. And then there's customary pricing, pricing on the basis of tradition. That is a little bit more rare, I'd say. I'm trying to think of any product that's has a traditional price. Perhaps in artisan products, perhaps if you're buying homemade or not homemade, handmade products that tend to have a certain price, or products that maybe people are used to, the dollar store, for example, charges, or at least it used to have a maximum price on things that was the basis of the offer. How to price a product line. So now we're thinking not just of the individual product, but of the line of products. So if we think about something like the iPhones, they will have a few different options here. Well, we'll start if we think about premium pricing, right? Every Apple iPhone product, every Mac product has a top of the line version that's often quite a bit more expensive. If you go to the Apple store for, say, a Mac Mini, your base model, I think right now is $500, but as soon as you start maybe going for the Max processor, a premium processor, add some more memory, add some more hard drive space, that can quickly go to a premium price that might be 100% or even more than the base model of a Mac Mini. Captive pricing is an interesting one. Sometimes that is referred to as the razors and blades model. Everybody's probably had the experience where you buy, or depending if you shave, you buy your Gillette Mach 3 pack that has the actual handle and a couple blades. And those are fairly cheap, but when you go to buy more blades, the blades are actually more expensive, or the blades are actually where the company makes the money, not the selling of the handle and the starter pack. Another good example there would be printer ink. I've owned printers that were cheaper than the ink refills I had to buy for them after the first. Usually, a lot of the time, printers come with a very small toner cartridge. You might have experienced this, and then when you go to buy the replacement cartridge, the printer might have been $50 for an inkjet printer, but a new cartridge might be $60, $70. That's a captive pricing version. You've already bought the printer. What do you do now? You don't want to buy another printer instead of new ink, so you're sort of captive in a captive market there, having to pay more for the refills on that product. Price leaders. Those are products that you sell at a price. This is often done by retailers. Products that you kind of door crasher sales. These would be those kind of products. The thing that makes the front page of the flyer. Those are often products that are, the idea is to bring you in to the store to get that product, and they're hoping they'll make the money back on other products that you buy when you come in to buy that product. That's often the case also with Black Friday deals. They'll advertise certain door crasher items or price leader products to get you in, and then hope to sell you more other products while you're there. Special event pricing, that's a kind of promotional pricing we already mentioned. Comparison discounting, again, that's pretty similar to the last slide we were looking at there with reference pricing. Looking at more now business to business sales, B2B rather than B2C. We have a couple of useful terms here. One of them that you'll learn about in accounting that's actually pretty important is FOB, free on board origin, or free on board destination. There's two aspects to that. One determines who's paying the shipping cost. With free on board origin, it means you're essentially, if you think about you're buying something from China, you own it from the moment you pay the price, and it's your job to ship it over to yourself. The other implication there is that if something happens during shipping, that's on you. The cash has changed hands already. The transaction has taken place as soon as it leaves their shop. I had an accounting professor who did that ordered a Subaru Forester from Japan, free on board origin, and the ship actually crashed that was carrying his car. And he just had to eat the loss in that case because it was free on board origin. Free on board destination is what most of us are used to, especially ordering things online. The seller is still responsible really until you get the goods. So if the product doesn't make it to you, that's the seller's problem rather than your problem. Transfer pricing is an interesting one. That is internal sales. So this can get pretty complicated. This also is often a way that firms might try to optimize their taxes and can fall foul of the IRS if you are being too clever with your transfer pricing. If a firm is making parts in China, let's say that there's a car company maybe making parts, maybe a better example, let's say that GM is making parts and has a Mexico plant that's making parts that they own, and then they ship those parts up to Michigan to be put in an F-150, or sorry, I said GM, to be put in a Sierra or something like that, a GM truck. For the accounting purposes, they have to put a charge on that and a price on that. And so GM USA will have that'll go into GM USA's cost, whatever they paid for those parts to GM Mexico. Obviously, if you wanted to minimize your taxes, you would say that you were paying, GM Mexico is charging GM US a high price for that, and then that shows up as a cost, which brings down profits and might lower your tax burden. But in transfer pricing or internal pricing is an accounting price, and there's a fair bit of discretion internally in terms of what management says is going to be the transfer price. They might choose to do that more competitively and have it more accurately reflect the costs. And then use the transfer pricing even to, some firms will actually tell their internal suppliers, hey, you guys are competing with third parties. And if there's another company that can provide this more cheaply to us, externally, we might choose to go with them instead of our own internal supplier. That's another use that some firms might make of this transfer or internal pricing. Discount, we all know what that is. I won't go through this here, but these are different ways that discounting, different types of discounting, and different ways that it might be used for a business. So this is, as I said, I won't go through these different types of discounting. They're fairly self-explanatory. So this will be the end of this topic and this lecture for pricing business products.